The White House threatening to yank security clearances from 6 Obama-era intel officials.
Not only is the president looking to take away Brennan's security clearance, he's also looking into the clearances of Comey, Clapper, Hayden, Rice, and McCabe.
President Trump is threatening Iran with historic consequences.
When people start to respond the way the Iranians are responding, it's because they're scared.
Now that we're getting a look at the FISA warrant, we're getting a clearer picture of...
You don't open up an investigation into a campaign, okay, and then turn around and get a FISA warrant.
President Trump's pick to lead the Veterans Affairs Department is starting his first full day on the job today. The Senate overwhelmingly confirming Robert Wilkie with an 86-9 vote.
President Trump welcomed to the White House a shining array of U.S. manufacturers, business owners, and ag producers.
We're here today to celebrate the greatest products in the world. When I was growing up, I'd see Made in America all over the place.
Don't tread on me, no.
Hi. Welcome. Live from New York, it's 7:01 on this, the 24th day of July. Brian is off. Todd is in.
Hello, nation.
We're glad to have you here.
Always fun to be here.
Hello, nation.
I'll be in the diner soon enough. I'll see you there soon. But for today, here.
All right, we got a lot of news to talk about.
That's right. The White House threatening to yank security clearance from Obama-era intel officials.
That's right. There is now concern that they use their clearance for political and perhaps even financial benefit.
And Griff Jenkins is in Washington, where reactions pouring in from both sides of the aisle on this topic. Hey, Griff.
Good morning. There are indeed two sides. One says the president is politicizing security clearances. The other says former officials are abusing their power. Either way, you got to look at how we got here. Former CIA Director John Brennan, who now earns a living as a national security analyst for another network, accused the president brazenly of treason after Helsinki. That prompted Senator Rand Paul to accuse Brennan of monetizing his clearance.
An ex-CIA agent can get out there and say incredibly stupid things like the president is treasonous. Yes, no one's going to stop John Brennan from saying that. No one stops him from taking millions of dollars to say such horrendous things. But should he still get classified information?
Now the president is exploring the removal of clearances not only for Brennan, but also from these former Obama officials. You see them there, Comey, McCabe, Clapper, Rice, and Hayden. Now Brennan says he hasn't made a penny off of his clearance. Comey and McCabe reportedly no longer have clearances. Clapper calls it petty, and Hayden tweeted this, saying he didn't go back to classified briefings and it won't have any effect on what he says or writes. And Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi had this to say.
I have been in the meetings for over 20 years. This is so extraordinary. The last thing you want in intelligence is partisanship.
Well, you'll probably hear a lot more about that. But for the record, clearance in the post-official position does not mean they have automatic access to intelligence, but rather they can be called upon for guidance or context. Guys?
That's right. Griff, behind you, the window. It's really humid in Washington today, isn't it? Holy cow, look at that condensation.
Yeah, I think the defogger may be broken. We've been hitting that button since about 4 a.m., and it's just taking its time.
You know what? It's proof that that is a swamp. Just saying. Time to drain that swamp.
You got to get Griff out of the swamp.
Thanks, Griff.
Thanks, Griff.
So right. these folks who used to work in national intelligence, they can go on to earn money as being correspondents for television. They can write books. Mm-hmm. They can be defense contractors. They can work with national emergencies, criminal investigations, national security investigations. And our president is saying, many people are saying it's punishment because they don't like him. But he's saying they're going out and they're making money on baseless accusations. They're leaking information.
Right.
And he's saying, I don't think they should make money on this, so I think I need to revoke their security clearances. And then Rand Paul saying, I'd take it a step further. I think anyone who used to work for CIA or the any intelligence organization needs to have their security clearances removed completely.
Well, here's the thing. And we've heard the list of those 6 people, a number of them have lied and leaked when they were on the job. If people knew that at the time, they probably should have been fired and prosecuted at that point. But, you know, I don't know out of the 6 how many actually still trade on that because they're out of government, aside from, Clapper and some people who just talk about stuff like that. There are many people who say, look, it looks like it's punishment. It looks like the president is being petty. He does have absolutely the right to do what he wants to do regarding security clearances, but they do have a First Amendment right. So, you know, it's going to be interesting to see what he does.
I think a lot of times the liberal left gets rights and privileges confused. And in our last hour, we had retired FBI Special Agent Greg Schaefer on. He basically breaks down the difference in this situation. Take a listen.
Having a security clearance is not a right, it's a privilege. And in the federal government, that privilege has to be renewed every 5 years. If the president can identify, again, a specific offense why he should revoke that security clearance, by all means do it. But at the same time, you got to keep in mind that just because they have a clearance does not mean they still have access to classified material. That doesn't exist the minute they leave the building or retire. They should have definitely looked to revoking those clearances back when there was criminal activity involved.
And to these claims by the left that First Amendment rights are being taken away, well, none of us have this security clearance. I don't think anybody that's in this building right now has a security clearance, and our First Amendment rights are fine. This is not a First Amendment violation. They still have the right to go on any network they want and say whatever they want. They're just not going to have the backing of their security clearance to do it.
But it does look like punishment for them speaking out, and therefore the rub. On the op-ed page of the Wall Street Journal this morning, they say that because this really doesn't impact that many people, given the fact that they don't have it anymore, they say if the president wants to do something more consequential, ask his administration to find who in 2017 leaked that former NSA advisor Michael Flynn had been talking to the Russians and he was wiretapped, because clearly it looks as if that was an official from the Obama administration who probably unmasked an American, and that's illegal. And the Wall Street Journal says if the president really wants to crack down on that, have the administration figure out who did that.
In that soundbite of Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Because Mr. Flynn has been ruined by that.
Right. They were asking her, is this going to affect John Brennan? And she said, not just John Brennan. It's going to be James Comey. It's going to be Andrew McCabe. It's going to be James Clapper. It's going to be Susan Rice and Michael Hayden. So she wasn't mincing words. She wasn't trying to.
She wasn't messing around at all. Yeah.
The question.
There they are right there. So what do you think? Do you think it's a good idea for the president to do that? Email us, friends@foxnews.com, or you could tweet us or Facebook as well.
Interesting soundbite that came out yesterday from New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, especially considering on September 11th, 2001, his state and his city were the victims of an actual jihad. And, you know, with regard to the immigration context, yes, we know many on the liberal left are coming out and saying we need to be open borders. We need to have lax immigration laws in our country. But for Governor Andrew Cuomo to make the statement that we're about to play in light of what happened to this great city and this great state is somewhat shocking. Let's play it for you now, and then we'll break it down. Here's New York Governor Andrew Cuomo.
This administration is on a crusade against people who they do not consider original Americans. What they've done at the border is an example of it, what they've done in Puerto Rico. And they are on a jihad to deport as many people as they can who they believe are not in the United States legally.
Okay, so that was a press conference where, keep in mind, well, that was an interesting Zoom.
Oh, Steve.
Jillian, stop that.
Hi, Jillian.
Cut it out. So anyway, the governor has pardoned a number of criminal illegal aliens who are facing deportation. And so that was a press conference where he used the unfortunate phrase, this administration is on a jihad.
This is the third time he's pardoned a group of individuals. Yesterday it was pardoning 7 more who were facing deportation for previous minor criminal convictions. In December he pardoned 18 individuals. Just a clear shot at President Trump's zero tolerance policy.
It's clearly this is something that they weren't doing during the Obama administration. This is something that they're focused on doing now because the president wants to do X, they're going to do Y. And it raises the question, is this strategy a successful strategy? And recent polling shows no.
Well, when you talk about immigration, and you know that there are a number of people on the political left who have said, look, ICE is a terrorist organization, and we need to abolish ICE and things like that. There's a new poll out from the Wall Street Journal and NBC that shows that that particular message for Democrats is not going to head them in the right direction. And in fact, right now they're headed in the wrong direction. The question simply was, are Democrats in the mainstream or out of step with American thinking? And when you look at the numbers, okay, on the screen right, you've got today, 56% say the Democrats are out of step. 2 years ago, the number was 14 points lower than that. So clearly the Democrats are out of step, people are thinking, and one of the reasons for it is this new push to regarding immigration.
So it's gone up. A lot of people think that Democrats are out of step. Let's look at the Republicans, where the numbers have gone down. In July of 2016, 2 years ago, 59% said Republicans were out of step. Look at it today. 57% say that Republicans are out of step. So it's gone down 2 points there.
It is interesting, and I'm sure Democrats are scratching their heads regarding the question, are they in the mainstream? That number went up 15 points. So 2 years ago, they were 15 points more in the mainstream than they are right now, and I'm sure people in Washington on the political left are trying to think, what are we doing to send a message that we are out of step?
Right.
We need to be in the mainstream
Socialism,
because we got to
abolish ICE, open borders, get rid of tax reform.
Well,
you wonder why.
What's interesting, we just had that interview in the last hour with the woman who went to the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez rally. It is happening in the Midwest. Whether the message is taking hold, clearly based upon these poll numbers, the message is not taking hold. Democrats are feeling a little bit more disenchanted with their own party, but nevertheless, the message is there, and it's going to be interesting to see what the Democrats do between now and the first Tuesday. Is it the first Tuesday or second Tuesday in November?
Tuesday.
First Tuesday in November to either stay the course or do something different because it's not working.
All right, let us know what you think. Friends at foxnews.com.
All right, it is 7:11 here in New York City, and Jillian joins us with some headlines.
At least you got it right. It was a Tuesday.
Yeah, I was pretty sure it was a Tuesday.
We give you credit for that.
One or two. I wasn't clear on Jillian.
Let's get you caught up on some of your other news this morning, starting with this. The FBI expected to join the search for a missing college student nearly a week after she vanished. We now know 20-year-old Molly Tibbetts was texting her mom hours before vanishing in Brooklyn, Iowa. She said she'd be home for dinner, but never showed up. Molly's boyfriend sounded the alarm when she missed work.
She hadn't called in, and I looked at my phone. I noticed that I had texted her good morning that morning, and she hadn't opened it. So I got a hold of all her friends and family.
Molly was last seen on Wednesday night going for a run. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. That's what the mayor of Portland is telling ICE protesters. They've been camped out outside of an ICE building since mid-June, calling for the agency to be abolished. But if they don't pack it in soon, the mayor says police will remove them. Cameras rolling when a 12-story building set for demolition comes crashing down in a cloud of dust. Watch. A project manager is in critical condition after being hit by the debris in Miami Beach. The building did have a demolition permit, but not an implosion permit. Authorities now launching a criminal investigation to figure out exactly what went wrong. It was being torn down to make way for a new oceanfront condo. Let's look at your headlines.
So they were supposed to tear it down, but they weren't supposed to implode it.
Right.
Oops. That's a big difference.
Mistake.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jillian.
Thanks, Jillian.
All right. In just a couple of hours, President Trump is going to head to Missouri, and he's going to show our next guest some support as he runs for Senate in the Show Me State. Missouri Attorney General Josh Hawley is going to join us next.
Plus, it was a football-themed gender reveal. This future dad thinks he's having a baby boy. But what happened next changed the game for everyone.
17 minutes after the hour now, a key Senate race in a dead heat. Missouri Democrat Claire McCaskill neck and neck with GOP challenger Attorney General Josh Hawley. But President Trump hoping to change all that when he campaigns for Hawley today in Missouri. Joining me now on his very busy morning is Missouri AG and U.S. Senate candidate Josh Hawley. Thanks for being here with us, sir. Your reaction when you heard that the President of the United States was going to be there stumping for you today?
Oh, delighted. I mean, I'm delighted to have his endorsement in this race, delighted to have his support, his record. He was voted for by 20 points by the people of Missouri. And, you know, after all this time, Claire McCaskill still hasn't gotten it. President Trump wins by 20, but Claire McCaskill won't support him on any major issues. She won't even meet with his Supreme Court nominee, Judge Brett Kavanaugh. It's really an unbelievable display of obstructionism, which has been her whole agenda, and we look forward to driving that point home today.
With that in mind, do you think that Claire McCaskill will see, probably not for the first time, that Missouri is Trump country, and that specifically with regard to Brett Kavanaugh, she is going to have to be one of the Democrats that signs on to his nomination? Or do you think she's just going to ignore it, continuing to vote along the Chuck Schumer lines and say, what will be, will be?
You know, she has voted with Chuck Schumer. It's over 80%, close to 90% of the time. We tallied up the votes over 2,700 times. And, you know, when it comes to Brett Kavanaugh, I have called on Senator McCaskill to say now that she will vote yes. But, you know, she's been wrong on Supreme Court nominees every single time in her career. She was wrong on Justice Gorsuch. She voted no. She was wrong on Justice Alito. Back in the day, she supported all of Barack Obama's liberal nominees. So she's been wrong consistently. This is her chance to actually listen to the people of Missouri and get it right. Instead, she's listening to her big liberal donors. But I call on her, listen, the people of Missouri voted for this president by almost 20 points. Listen to your constituents. Support Judge Kavanaugh.
The president clearly supporting you. If you are elected to this seat, what topics, what issues are you going to focus on to support the president's agenda?
Well, of course, we've got to get conservative judges on our bench, beginning with the United States Supreme Court. It really is, I think, the defining issue of this race. The Supreme Court is in the balance, but so is immigration, for instance. So we've got to make sure we secure our border. That's something else Claire McCaskill won't do. She won't vote for funding to secure the border. She is supporting a radical liberal plan to open up the border to anybody who brings a child with them, whether or not the child is their own. So we've got to get that border secure, bring back jobs from overseas, get wages growing again.
In the interest of fairness, we did invite Ms. McCaskill on. We have not yet heard back from her, and unfortunately for her, the interview is now over. Thank you so much, Josh. Have a great time today. Enjoy, and best of luck in the election.
Thank you.
Socialism taking over the Democratic Party. Our next guest says the further they move to the left, the better chance Republicans have at winning the midterms. Plus, talk about free handouts. This man running for mayor giving away $200,000 in cash.
Welcome back. It's time for your news by the numbers, and we start with $200,000. That's how much Chicago mayoral candidate Willie Wilson just handed out at church. His opponents accuse the Democrat of buying votes, but the state's Board of Elections says he did not break campaign finance laws since the money came from his nonprofit foundation. Next, 27. That's at least how many senators the Democrats suggested were for sale online. Many pointed fingers at Russia when websites surfaced using lawmaker names and the new .for sale suffix. The Democratic Senate Campaign Committee claims it was done to prevent, quote, bad actors. And finally, $512 million. That's tonight's Mega Millions jackpot, the 5th largest in history. Your chances of winning? 1 in about 300 million. Ainsley.
Okay, thanks so much. So you're saying there's a chance. All right, this past weekend we saw Democrats displaying some radical ideas in New York at Ozzy Fest, as well as in the Heartland. Listen.
The great mystery is why the president has not spoken up for our country.
I think we should get rid of ICE.
The ideas that we campaigned on are now mainstream ideas.
We will not rest until every person in this country is paid a living wage to lead a dignified life.
Our next guest believes that the Democrats are really moving further to the left, and in doing so, they are also moving away from American mainstream thinking. John Daniel Davidson is a senior correspondent at The Federalist and joins us now with more. Good morning, John. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So what is the mindset of the Democratic Party?
The Democrats have this narrative that demographics is destiny, that voter turnout is everything, and that they're on the right side of history, and that they don't have to compromise on a single issue. They don't have to persuade people that aren't already in the Democratic fold, and that they can just wait it out and dominate their opponents and not have to moderate at all or tack to the center. And that's why we hear these increasingly extreme policy proposals like free college and guaranteed income and Medicare for all.
But is that going to backfire? Because we saw that in the last election when Hillary Clinton's not campaigning in certain states because she thought she was going to win. She didn't need those states. And it turns out she did. And apparently those independents were the ones that decided.
Yeah, exactly. I think the Democrats haven't quite accepted the 2016 election. They haven't accepted the fact that about half the country is not on board with these left-wing progressive ideas that might poll well, but once they're subjected to a little bit of scrutiny, people realize what massive expansion of government is required to pull off something like free college or a guaranteed income. And Hillary Clinton campaigned on those things because she had to pander to the Democratic base, and it didn't work out for her. And they just haven't accepted that.
Yeah, that would be outrageously expensive. Who's going to pay for that? Many people we're hearing are calling it Trump derangement syndrome. Why is that?
Well, Trump doesn't help them at all. They do get triggered by Trump. But the issue is larger than Trump. I think we've seen this happening prior to Trump's appearance on the national political stage. And part of the reason is that when it comes right down to it, Democrats don't feel as though they need to share the country with Republicans and with independents that disagree with him. The irony is that Democrats could put together a majority coalition right now, given Trump's unpopularity among independents and Democrats, if they would just compromise on a few key issues, like abortion, for example, or maybe go easy on the socialism. But they're not willing to do that. Why? It's because they have this doctrinaire mindset about every single policy proposal, and that if you're not on board with every single idea, then you're out and your vote doesn't matter, and they don't want your vote. And we actually heard Democrats say this after the 2016 election. And if they can't get over that, if they can't tack to the center and compromise, they're never going to put together a national majority political coalition.
All right, John Daniel Davidson, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Is Eric Holder running for president? The former attorney general just revealed when he will make a decision. Plus, Congress is fighting to get those FISA documents declassified, and Greg Jarrett says it will prove the Russia probe is based on a lie. He joins us live to talk about his new book, coming up next.
New book?
I'm on the outside. I was born country, and that's what I'll always be. Like the rivers and the woodlands, wild and free. I got 100 years.
Well, we're a long way from the country here in the middle of Midtown Manhattan. You can't even see the top of the Empire State Building on this kind of foggy, misty, hazy, hot and humid Tuesday.
That's right. Let's bring in Greg Jarrett, Fox News anchor and author of this new book, The Russia Hoax. Greg, why did you write this?
Because a lot of people, everybody's very busy in their lives. If you want to know exactly what happened in great detail, all of it sourced, it's in the book. And it tells you what's still going on, as we saw over the weekend with the release of the FISA documents. I actually quote some of the FISA documents in my book. And as one reader said to me, looking at the FISA footnote, which was supposed to convey that Hillary Clinton had paid for it, the person said, you'd have to be clairvoyant and telepathic to be able to figure out that this dossier was paid for by Hillary Clinton, composed by an ex-British spy based on anonymous sources and quadruple hearsay. The dossier itself was a joke.
Well, and the footnote says, all it says is that it was funded by somebody who wanted to get dirt about Trump. That could have been an anti-Trumper, it could have been a Republican. It's not detailed. Your book essentially is an encyclopedia of what we know, what is known so far. And you mentioned FISA. You know, it was Devin Nunes who took so much heat over his memo where he said the dossier was one of the cornerstones of the FISA application. And then the Democrats at that time came out and they all said, no, it wasn't. Well, now we know, thanks to the 412 mainly redacted pages that we got a couple of days ago from the FBI, it was a cornerstone.
Exactly.
James Comey, while he was peddling his book and making millions, he did an interview with Bret Baier on Fox News, and he said, Oh, no, the dossier really wasn't the major part of it. There was other evidence. It wasn't significant, he said. Well, read the documents that came out over the weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, it clearly was the majority of that FISA warrant application to spy on the Trump campaign. And it should never have happened. And if those judges had actually known who composed it, who paid for it,
right,
they would never have signed off.
Well, because the dossier was, I think to this day, is largely unverified. And Ainsley made a great point yesterday. She said the whole application was to spy on Carter Page. So the FBI had the obligation to present things that were known, things that were reliable.
Right.
So if that were true, he would have been charged by now, and yet he has not.
Look, when you sign off on a FISA warrant to wiretap, you are vouching for the honesty and the truthfulness, the veracity of the documents contained therein. And by Comey's own admission, it was unverified. The law requires you to corroborate and verify before you ever present it to the court. And on renewals, you have to present new evidence. Well, based on what we saw over the weekend, there was no new evidence, and Rod Rosenstein signed off on it nevertheless on a renewal.
Because we have to continuously remember, in that type of a surveillance application, there is no defense attorney defending the interests of the person being surveilled. That's the nature of surveillance. That said, you need to be above board, and they weren't.
The judges trust the Department of Justice and the FBI, which is why they approve 98% of all FISA applications. When you read this thing, you know, they buried and concealed vital information and deceived the court. That's a fraud on the court, and it's also a felony called abuse of power.
Well, they not only used the dossier, which was made up largely, but they also used a Yahoo News story, which was fed to them by the people who made up the dossier.
That's right. They represent to the court that this is an independent corroboration of the dossier when, in fact, it came from the same source. It's called circular sourcing. Another point is that they sort of, in the preamble, they lead the court to believe that Carter Page is a Russian agent who was recruited back in 2013. What they don't tell the court is he never capitulated, and in fact, he helped the U.S. government prosecute Russians. If the court had known that, they would have said, what is this rubbish? Get out of here.
And the Russians thought he was an idiot.
Yes, that was one of their text messages.
Greg, you write about John Brennan, the former CIA director, and the president is saying he's considering revoking security clearances for John Brennan, for 6 former senior national security officials. What do you think about that?
John Brennan's a dangerous guy. He's a hyper-partisan, always has been a Clinton sycophant, as I describe in the book. He's out there propagating the dossier as a pretext to investigate Donald Trump and clear the path for Hillary Clinton. It is dangerous to allow a guy like that, as well as Clapper and Comey, who are partisans, to have security clearance. They can use the classified information they can still gain for political purposes, and in fact, John Brennan has done this before. My position is nobody should have security clearance after they leave the government, except for former presidents who are often consulted on critical issues.
Rand Paul said something very similar. Said once you retire, no more security clearance.
That's it. Rand Paul is absolutely correct.
The book out today, The Russia Hoax, on bookshelves. Of course, Russia news dominating the headlines. You almost have to start writing a sequel like today, don't you?
Well, you know, I spent 4 months writing this book. I started in December. And by the time we got to May, so much had happened that I went back and revised and added a lot. But I must say, all of the information that has come out since the book went to print only substantiates the evidence I present in this book. There are 700 footnotes, so I was very meticulous about it. Yeah, I wrote.
No unnamed sources.
No, I have obviously sources, but I made a decision not to use them and their information in the book. So everything here is well sourced.
Well, if Hillary Clinton had won, a lot of this would not have come out if you and Sarah Carter and a few other great journalists were not on Sean Hannity's show every night telling us the truth. We might not know about any of this.
Ainsley,
so
thank you very much.
Welcome.
I appreciate
Best of luck, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Greg. Congratulations.
With that, Jillian Mealy time. Jillian, what do we have on the...
Jillian Mealy time. Wow.
It's a new show.
I don't know what to think about that.
There you go.
All right, so we're following a couple of stories. Let's get you caught up on this. A man accused of driving drunk and killing a police officer is now back in jail. Adrian Breedlove taken into custody as the judge considers revoking his bond in Dallas. Police groups were outraged when he was released on just $7,600 bond, less than 24 hours after hitting and killing Senior Corporal Jamie Givens. The Dallas Police Association is demanding to know whether or not the district attorney fought for a higher bond. Eric Holder drops his biggest hint yet at a 2020 run for the White House.
Are you seriously considering throwing your hat into the ring for 2020?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it, and what I've said is that I'd make a determination sometime early next year. But my focus really now is on 2018, the midterms.
The Obama-era Attorney General has been hyping up the potential run since attending the Politics and Eggs event in New Hampshire last month. Holder is a vocal critic of President Trump. One of our nation's oldest congressional leaders reminds the world that he is, in fact, not dead. Staffers for Senator Orrin Hatch tweeting, "Hi, Google, we might need to talk," with a screenshot of Google search results which claimed he passed away last year. His team then posting a series of photos proving the senator is very much alive, showing him speaking to the press, reading the paper, and enjoying his birthday. That's great. And how about this? A very excited dad-to-be pulls a football out of a box, revealing his wife Meg is having a baby boy. Watch. There was one problem, though. When Meg's mom read the ultrasound to decide if she should stuff the box with tutus or footballs, she actually read it wrong. So, congrats on your baby girl.
Right wrong, Mom! I was looking at that. It's a girl!
As you can see, Dad Chris Delgado then spiking that football in front of about 80 of his closest family and friends in New Jersey.
So many questions. Why is Grandma looking at the ultrasound, and why couldn't Grandma figure out the ultrasound?
Why are these gender reveals suddenly big?
I don't know, but there goes the camera. Bye, guys.
Sell pink and blue stuff, Steve Ducey.
That was my cue to leave.
Thanks,
Jillian. All right, straight ahead, some schools are trying out facial recognition software to prevent another shooting like the one in Parkland, Florida. But one student who survived that tragedy says it may not be enough. He will join us live shortly.
Plus, Congress getting its first look at tax cuts Part 2. What does it mean for your wallet? Of course, the man, the myth, the legend, Stuart Varney on that. Next. Stu. Quick sports headlines now. Olympic swimmer Ryan Lochte suspended for 14 months. He violated anti-doping rules after using an IV without a therapy exemption. So how did they catch him? This comes after he posted this photo online back in May. Lochte says he was getting a dose of vitamins to stay healthy. Instagram strikes again. And Tim Tebow's baseball season likely over. The Mets minor leaguer breaking his hand, swinging his bat during a game on Friday. Yes, he hurt his hand playing baseball. He's a baseball player. Former pro quarterback had just made the AA All-Star team with the Binghamton Rumble Ponies. And there was talk he could have been called up to the big leagues later this year, but unfortunately, he plays for the Mets. Good luck.
He'll come back again, though. He'll come back.
Meanwhile, today, up on Capitol Hill, House Republicans getting their first look at Tax Reform 2.0, aimed at making permanent the tax cuts, which are geared toward the middle class, Stuart Varney says.
So what will this mean for you and your wallet? Stuart Varney is the host of Varney & Company on the Fox Business Network and joins us now to break it all down for us. Stuart, what can we expect?
Let me repeat that. It is geared towards the middle class. This is not for big business. This is middle America that benefits from this. Item number one, they're going to reveal changes to 401ks and IRAs, private pension plans. They want middle America to be able to put more money aside for their own retirement. That's a very, very good thing. Maybe also a new rule that you have to opt out of a 401k rather than opting in. At the moment,
So you're forced to.
Well, yeah, you're forced to, but you can get out if you want to.
Sure.
I mean, at the moment, my daughter, for example, 3 years at a big corporation, she still isn't in the 401k program.
could have
No
been
matter
building
what
up the
I
nest
say,
egg.
she's ignoring free money, and I hope she's watching right now. So I'd like a rule change so that if you move to a corporation, you are in the 401k automatically. You can get out if you want to. Second line of attack is make those individual tax cuts permanent, so they cannot be removed and reversed by a future Congress. That puts the Trump growth plan in place and keeps it in place. All good.
Okay, so it sounds like a good plan to a lot of people watching right now, if it is indeed based toward the middle class, but it's a political thing.
Yes.
The vote's going to come up before the November election, and the Democrats are being told, vote no, which, if it is indeed a tax cut for the middle class, that is a political loser for the Democrats.
It's a tax trap for the Democrats. If they vote no on this, and it'll pass the House. I'm pretty sure it'll pass the House. September, October, there'll be a vote. Okay, it goes through the House. When it gets to the Senate, Democrat leadership is saying, don't vote for this. Don't vote. You can't be in favor of anything to do with the Trump tax cuts. You've got to vote no. That would mean that some of those vulnerable Democrats who are up for re-election in November will be told to vote no on something that really benefits their constituents, middle America. What are they going to do? I don't know what they're going to do, but it's highly unlikely that this bill will go through the Senate. It will be a political victim, if you want to put it like that.
So that and the Supreme Court justice will be 2 votes before the midterm elections.
Correct. Yes. A trap for the Democrats,
That's
if you
called
ask me.
strategery. That's what that's called right there, strategery.
I remember that word.
Remember that word?
I do indeed, yes.
All right, well, hopefully your daughter's listening.
Yes.
Yeah, so do I.
401k.
Yes, get
Does
into
she
it.
normally listen to you?
That's a good question, Steve. That's a loaded question.
Okay, I know
I was
Stuart's
told
family.
right out of college, invest in 401k because you're going to be making more money than you've ever made before, and you won't even feel it.
Well, it's free money.
It is
There's
free
a
money.
match from your
Match
employer.
6%.
To turn it down
Right.
for whatever reason is not good. Rachel?
Rachel?
All right, Stuart, everybody's going to be watching an hour and 10 minutes from right now over on Fox Business.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.
Sure.
All right, some schools are trying out that facial recognition software to prevent another shooting like the one we saw in Parkland, Florida. But one student who survived that tragedy says it won't work, and he's going to join us live to tell us why next.
And the media are slamming President Trump's tough talk on Iran, but his no-nonsense approach may actually be working with another rogue nation. The new pictures from... Where is that? Straight ahead. Since February's shooting in Parkland, Florida, schools have been ramping up efforts across the country to increase security, and some schools are now turning to facial recognition software to try and boost security. School administrators saying the software could prevent shootings like Parkland, but does this do enough? Kyle Kashuv is a survivor of the February shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, and the Turning Point USA High School director. He joins us right now live from our D.C. bureau. Kyle, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Okay, what do you think about this idea where this facial recognition software would essentially take a look at everybody who goes into a school, and if they're not supposed to be there, there would be a list of troublemakers and known threats. It would alert people and not allow them in.
I think this needs to be a supplement, not a substitute. I really think that we need to put more research into this measure, but it currently seems cumbersome and ineffective. I really think that first we have to do what works and has been proven to work, and that is making sure that we have armed individuals, and then we can have this as an additional factor to security. But first we have to do what works, and that's arming teachers and staff and having guards on school that can act immediately.
Well, you know, at your school, you had a guard. You had a guard with a gun. And the day of the shooting, he was outside and did not go inside, and he got in trouble.
That's true.
So what do you make of that, though? I mean, if that's your argument, we should have more people with guns. Unfortunately, sometimes that doesn't work.
We have to make sure that we have properly trained individuals who can act immediately when there's a response. And I can tell you that right now, there are states all across the nation that teachers are armed, and there haven't been any incidents with them not being able to act properly. We just have to make sure that the people who do have guns are properly trained. And it's been proven that if they're trained and they act immediately, then they deter attacks.
Okay. Since the attack at your school, you know, because you've been traveling the country, more and more schools are trying to beef up security, and that is a good thing.
That's true, but we have to make sure that every single school across the nation has a high level of security, and we have to make sure that every single school is armed. And because what that does is basically a target that is soft and that there aren't guns protecting the school, it seems soft, and it entices the shooter to come to the school because they know it's a weak target. 97% of shootings, public mass shootings, occur in gun-free zones.
Okay, so how about this? How about if you use facial recognition and you had armed guards and you had metal detectors?
Well, I'm all for making sure that we have the highest level of security, but I think that right now we should be focusing on what works, implementing that, and then move on to other measures.
All right, well, let's see what happens. Kyle Kashuv, we thank you very much for joining us today from our nation's capital. Thank you, Kyle. All right, a little before the top of the hour, the media melting down over President Trump's comments on Iran. Are they just repeating the same criticism from the North Korea summit? Ben Shapiro here. He's got reaction. You're going to want to hear it. He's the editor-in-chief of the DailyWire.com.